Sri Vasudevanand Saraswati, Chapter 12. Finale. Days passed by while he was thus settled in Garudeshwar, bestowing peace on the very worldly souls who sought his refuge, and none of them suspected of a great plan that he was contemplating within himself, if was to be a bolt from the blue to them all. For he was inwardly planning to take leave of his earthly habitation within a few months. Shaka 1835 or the Christian year 1913 had come to a close. The saint celebrated the annual festival of Datta Jayanti as usual. Devotees from different quarters of the country attended it and they returned to their homes at the consummation of it. The celebration this year was marked by an unusual assembly and an exceptionally inspiring discourse of the saint in the opinion of the bhaktas who were present. He spoke to them in a mood which was pregnant with the hints of finality about it and was of strange forebodings. Some of the sensitive souls present there even felt that the Gurudev was perhaps delivering a valedictory address of the year. Those who heard him and left this vicinity to return home did so with a heavy heart and nameless uneasiness in their soul. The address in Garudeshwar, which was to prove the farewell address, reminds us of his exhortations to the seekers at Chikhalda during his Chaturmasa stay, to which a reference is already made in detail in this book. He harped on the same tune even here regarding the basic values of life, the fundamentals of faith, the rules of religious conduct, and the needs of the spirit. He once again, as ever, underlined for them the need of purity, inner and outer, of discretion with discipline in all the acts of life. He expected them all to conduct themselves with triple purity in life, through thought, word, and deed. For purity of mind, he asked them to be careful about purity of food according to the religion, the scientific principle. Purity of diet begets purity of mind, which ultimately accelerates spiritual integration in life. He drew the attention to the ancient essentials for success in self discipline, leading to union with the Absolute or God, the very things endorsed by the seers of old for securing spiritual eligibility for the union. These characteristics are named as Adhikara Chatushtayam, that is, the four essentialities for that eligibility. One must cultivate total detachment to all enjoyment of sensuous experiences here or hereafter. One must equip oneself with the virtues like inner restraint, outer control, equipoise, etc. One should practice discernity by differentiation between the real and the phenomenal and should be disinterested in the passing flux of life. Above all, one should have that inner urge for redemption from the bonds of samsara and deep hunger for the reality. This is not possible, he told them frankly, unless one practices in life divine virtues or cultivates the Daiva Sampat like faith, service, courtesy, charity, love, humility, and total surrender to God. These are the qualities that are the marks of a bhakta, a jnanin, and a sadhu in life. He elaborated on these themes and, as if in the manner of an Upanishadic sage, rounded off, saying, "This is the way, the path, the goal. Follow this and be happy." 4 months passed in quick succession after the Datta Jayanti festival in Shaka 1835 and the month of Jyeshta or Shaka 1836, that is, 1914 AD, arrived to mark the finale of his earthly existence. With all the apparent signs, he was seen to be losing his strength due to the recurrent attacks of his digestional ailment, which was almost chronic to him. On the night of the 14th day of the second fortnight of Jyeshta, he announced his decision to the disciples who were near him. I will give up this body tomorrow after the new moon night. Accordingly, as the specified night was running out, by seconds and minutes, the saint got up on his seat, sat facing the image of Lord Dattatreya, plunged into deep meditation, and through the exercise of his mystic power, voluntarily freed his spirit from the fleshly limitations of the body to which it remained committed for the span of 60 years. No wonder that the bhaktas were all thrown into gloom for a while. But they were soon awake to the words of their master, who had taught them, like Adi Shankar, to be always aware of the reality beyond the appearance of this world, which was only a dream or an illusion, not worth grieving about what is lost. Brahman, or the Absolute, is the real. The world is an illusion, and the soul is not different from the Brahman. The devotees soon became normal themselves and took his departure in a proper spirit, as he would have wished them to do it. They have firm faith that he is there even today, though disembodied in spirit. As Sri Rangavadut has assured in his Namasudha, as though the departed in a worldly sense, to his bhaktas he is present forever. Thus, on the first Ashada of Shaka 1836, that is 1914 AD, Sri Vasudevanand Saraswati passed into eternal union with the Supreme. His mystic departure was marked by the transit of a brilliant flame from his forehead into the image of Dattatreya, facing which he had taken his last posture at the ultimate moment of his life. This was in conformity with the description given in the Gita regarding the exit of the yogis from this life. The Gita describes the sage at that moment. At the moment of his grand departure, with a mind stilled within, with a spirit of deep devotion, and equipped with the mystic power, the yogi, having withdrawn his breaths in the center of his brows, loses himself into the union with the divine being. Those who were near him and others who learned the news arranged for the last holy rites befitting the glory of this great pontiff and the patron of religion, one of the greatest mystics born in this ancient land. They decorated his body with garlands of flowers, smeared it with sandal paste and sacred ashes, burnt incense and camphor before it, and carried it to the bank of the river Narmada, in whose waters he had taken holy bath 3 times a day during his life. With the appropriate recitations of the Vedic mantras and devotional hymns, the sacred remains were delivered into the river, which was a witness to his austerities and faith. Garudeshwar since then has been a sacred place to be remembered, a place of pilgrimage that conjures up the divine life of the Master in the memory of his disciples who turn to him even today in moments of the spiritual crisis or of the divine inspiration to visit him and to have a reverential look at him. His sacred darshan through the holy memorial or samadhi, which stands on the banks of Narmada, giving a call of assurance as it were to the bhaktas who wait upon him in the words of Gita. Come unto me, forsaking all other paths of the world. I will deliver you from all the sins. Grieve not. Indeed, he was a mighty force that moved on earth in flesh and blood, upholding the cause of Sanatana Dharma after the manner of Adi Shankaracharya. His soul is silently guiding the destinies of the devotees, perhaps more forcefully since the divine Atman is now redeemed from the checks of human limitations, which he, as Lord Dattatreya, had voluntarily imposed on himself, just with the loving purpose of conferring grace on the erring humanity and guiding them to the right goal, as remarked by the poet Kalidasa in reference to the hymn by the gods sung in the praise of Lord Vishnu in Raghuvamsha. The only purpose of thy life and mission is to bless the world with thy grace. Thou hast no other interest. Sri Rangavadut, the great worthy disciple of our saint, confirms in the concluding verses of his Namasudha the identity of the saint as the divine incarnation of Bhagwan Dattatreya, who descended on this earth to lift up the sinners to the state of piety and faith. Homage to thee, O Vasudev! Thou art Lord Dattatreya himself, descended on this earth by taking an ascetic's form to save us all in this Kali age. This is an age of science and technology. It is difficult for the common man to doubt the powers of science to which he has been a witness in this century of moon trips by the astronauts, and to believe the unseen powers of the saints which cannot be proved in the laboratories, but can be seen only by those who have the spiritual eyes to see, the eyes of faith and devotion. For those who are not in a mood to believe, the Gita has a warning note in the end of chapter 18. Never utter a word of this to him who is not disciplined, who has no faith, who is not ready to listen, and who abhors me. The Vedic Atharva Stotra in praise of Lord Ganapati contains the same hint. Do not pass this sacred Atharva hymn into the hands of an Ashishya, a person without faith. Only those who have the faith, devotion, and the sincerity of spirit are fit to grasp the meaning of the mystic way of life. A strange episode confirming these observations regarding the disposition of the believers has been recorded by Sri Rangavadut in his Guru Leelamritam, and again stated in a couplet in his Namasudha. The story goes like this. Sri Vasudevanand camped on the banks of river Kayadu at a town called Narsi in the south in one of his Chaturmas trips. Whenever he would go to the river for his bath and prayers, he would enjoy the company of his god, Lord Dattatreya, who visited him in the form of a child and let himself to be fondled in the saint's lap. Nobody knew of this mysterious event which recurred daily until a sweeper woman one day saw the miracle with her own eyes and stopped there on the bank for some time with a stunning sense of wonder at that sight. When the saint realized that the woman also was a fortunate person like himself to enjoy the sight or the darshan of the Lord, he immediately called her near and advised her to keep quiet and not to publicize carelessly what she had seen to others in the town. Of course, the woman, who was overwhelmed by the sight, promised that she would not do so. But how could a woman so poorly equipped with intelligence and having no religious scruples be expected to hold her tongue? She forgot the pledge and spread it from year to year against her vow. The result was that she was taken seriously ill. The story is significant of the point that the spiritual mysteries are not to be discussed as everyday events of commonplace values, but should be quietly pondered and preserved in the inner recesses of our soul, and should be considered as our precious possessions in this otherwise dull and doubting world. Silence alone can nourish our faith. It is our duty, as Adi Shankar has said, to desist from idle and meaningless polemics and to hold silence in all humility regarding these matters. Saint Bernard, a Christian mystic, says, "Faith accepts, never argues." Thus, through the preceding 12 chapters, we have had a glimpse into the depths of this saintly mystic soul. What we have seen and heard and pondered can be called but a millionth fraction of the whole, too vast to be compressed within the covers of this book, too profound to be plumbed by the poor pen and the talents of this writer. The story of Yoganand Saraswati given in this book is an eye opener to those who fondly hope to be able to reach the heart of the saintly spirits on the strength of their external learning devoid of faith. Yoganand was a simple man of faith and devotion with no touch of learning in the usual sense. Yet, what great heights was he helped to climb by our saint with his blessings and grace. We should therefore shed all our ego, strip ourselves naked of the superficial learning, and approach the masters with childlike innocence, and only then they will reveal to us their love and compassion. Shake off all learning and live like a child. Jesus Christ, who insisted to say who was eligible to enter the kingdom of heaven, picked up a child from among the listeners and said, "Suffer you the children, come to me, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." The gates of the region of the Supreme are low. We have to bend down to enter them. We must be humble. Inner humility alone unlocks the spiritual gates. Jai Tembe Swami.